So, let's see, what else will be different? Meditation instructors. We have a lot of people watching. We have mostly meditation instructors now for everybody. I think there's like 12 people left. So are you one of the 12 people who hasn't? Yeah, okay.
Just 1 second. So James Morris is sharing a screen. If you could stop sharing, that'd be great.
Yes, please.
Okay. So if you still do not have an MI, somehow I think and you need an MI if you're doing teacher training. You do not need a meditation instructor otherwise. And right now we're not even giving meditation instructors to anyone who's not doing the teacher training because we're completely overwhelmed with the amount of people taking the training. So, and our meditation instructors are taking 2, 3, 4 plus people is what's transpired. So I'm really happy with the number of people, but we are overwhelmed. And then for the people who are already teaching, we're not giving you a meditation instructor. Okay, so if you're already teaching, we're not getting, make sure you get that. What we're going to do is pair you up with another teacher so that you have someone to communicate with. How's that sound? So it really doesn't make much sense for those of you who've done so many retreats, like tons of 30-day retreats and things like that. It doesn't make sense to give you an MI, but I do want you communicating with someone who is taking the classes so you have someone to communicate with about what's going on. Okay? So that's how we're working this, but please be patient with the technical stuff. We're really working hard. We put in, I can't tell you how many hours and how many days and weeks to try to get this sorted out, but it is coming along pretty quickly. But please be patient. Yeah, probably another few weeks, I would imagine, is what we're looking at. But we do have all the stuff coming in, box after box after box, and it's just not as easy as we had originally anticipated. Go figure. So anyway, but let's turn to prayers and aspirations. We'll do it short, and we'll get started. Yeah, I think we'll just do short metta tonight. How about that? And this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, awakens from suffering and discovers everlasting peace. Okay, so as usual, the format for the last few thousand years, not just for our center, but for the last few thousand years, about 2,553 years to be exact, is this. So if you're not aware of the format, and I don't care if you're teacher training or not, if you're auditing or you're just interested in these classes, please get the format down. We will always follow it. And if you ever do teach, please use this format and don't deviate. So, but I want to say that everyone is welcome. Even if you're not doing teacher training, we want everyone here. But a lot of people are. So when I say that, don't feel excluded, because I will say sometimes, especially when I want to highlight for teachers who are taking this for training, That is not the exclusion of others, but I'm highlighting that for you when I make those statements. But we do want everyone here, not just trainees, okay? So the format goes like this. First, you study. That's the first part of this. And study means that you come to a class, you listen to a teaching, or you have a book, a Dharma book. That's the first format, first part of it. And Dharma teachings and books aren't like anything else. They're not things that you can read. They're things that you contemplate, meaning that you would literally, I think the best thing is, for me to use an example, the Buddha's first teaching was the Four Noble Truths. It's the very first thing he ever taught. And as a consequence, people hear like that's the first teaching, so it must be the most easiest or the most basic or something like that. And I certainly started off like that. And it's not true. Going on 30 years later and more than 20 years of teaching, I come back to that teaching every year. The first year, when I first taught it, I thought, I really know this stuff. In the second year, I was really sure that I knew this stuff. A little bit deeper than the first year, but the second year I was sure I knew it. In the third year, I had developed what I believe to be expertise on the subject. In the fourth year, I started to question myself about that. And by the 20th year, I was sure that I really didn't know a whole lot about the Four Noble Truths, but I could talk a lot about them. And that's the experience of Dharma. And so sometimes people see that we're teaching the same things or having the same class or maybe a foundational class. Don't think that you got it. Dharma works in layers. Dharma means like reality. And that's what we're uncovering. And you may think you have it like that you got a subject matter, but it's not like other subject matter. Like if you took like math classes and you learned basic arithmetic, I don't think that it's ever really going to hit you like 2 + 2. If you went back and learned that was 4, if you went back now and studied that, I don't think you'd get like a lot out of that. It would still be like, yeah, that's what I learned, 50 years ago. Dharma is not like that. 2 + 2, the depth of 4 is vast, and that's what I want you to pick up on. Is like, keep coming and keep listening, and even if you believe it's the same subject matter, keep coming, because it's not going to be the same thing that you heard the last time. And maybe half of what you heard the last time, but the other half won't be. You will have changed substantially. Your awareness will have grown. And the things that you first learned will be very different. Like right now, there's a lot of people in here who have been with me 15, 20 years. And I'm pretty sure that you know that what we're calling like Introduction to Mindfulness classes is filled with things that you didn't hear quite that way before. Is that right? Good. All right. But the first thing is study, and that means just take it slow. Take it slow. These aren't books to read or classes to digest. You could watch this class over and over and over again. And for those of you who are going to teach one day, before you teach this class, go back and watch this class again, please. Yeah, it's not something that you. I think the danger is thinking that when you know you're in danger, when you think you've mastered the subject. So, Sin, you play guitar? You have more than 100 guitars, I think? 104. Yeah. You've been playing for how many years?
45.
Yeah, you're going to be up for a Grammy, I think?
I'll be there, but...
You'll be there, yeah. That's a very humble musician. You have a lot to learn still, or?
Times.
Okay. Dharma is like that. It's like playing an instrument. You get better and better at it, and the better you become, the more humble you become. You don't think of yourself as a master. I saw something online. It's called Udemy. It's a website, and they're offering a mindfulness class, level 1, foundational, level 2, intermediate, level 3, master, all within 6 weeks. All within 6 weeks. And I saw how many people were enrolled in that, and we have way more. Because we're not charging anything, I think is the reason. But I also looked at the quality of it. And we don't say that you're going to be a master in 6 weeks. But we will say you'll be a master, actually never. How about that? That's our promise. It's not a great marketing scheme, is it? You know, that you just keep learning and you just keep growing. How many of you would be involved in something like that? You know, does it sound more authentic if I say it that way? Like you're just going to keep growing and keep learning, and it's a life issue. Yeah, that's about right. That's what we mean by study. Like, just take your time and be humble and read the text. Don't go crazy with the books, buying a whole bunch of books. It's more important that you have one really good or two really good books, and that you really go over them again and again until the pages are bent and they're all marked up before jumping on to the next Dharma book. That's my 2 cents. And if you want recommendations, let me know. Happy to send you in the right direction, because it's not like it used to be. You can go online now. You can go to a bookstore. Which book would you choose, and on what basis? The title, the picture on the cover, and who are the authors anyway? And what's the order? Like, why would you choose that one versus that one? And aren't they all the same anyway? No, not at all, actually. Yeah, not at all. So I'm happy to help, but yeah, ask if you have questions like that. But first is study. Yeah, either the books or come to classes or both, and then contemplate what it is that you've studied. Take a sentence, literally one Dharma sentence. Just take it and then just hold it in attention and ask yourself, what did I just read? And what does that mean? And how does it apply to my life? If it's not practical, it's not wisdom. It's intellectual knowledge. And there's a lot of people in here with high IQs. There's no question. I mean, I know a lot of you. I know how brilliant you are intellectually. Intellect has nothing to do with wisdom, however. Wisdom is when you can integrate the knowledge, the study, and the contemplation. And it's integrated not just in your thoughts, but it's integrated into your speech and behaviors, into your actions. And so you can have a high IQ and a really low wisdom score. What do you think? Possible? And you can have a really high IQ and a really low EQ. And that's not a contradiction at all, right? So I think a lot of you would have a high IQ, and if we use the same score, like 0 to 200, what would you say your EQ would be? And that's where you start to get the integration piece. It's like you may know may have read a lot of stuff, but have you contemplated it, and have you brought it into your life? Have you brought it into your life? And that's the third part of this, is the meditation piece. And wisdom is derived from the meditation, not from the study or the contemplation, actually. It's derived from the direct experience. Have I brought this into my life? Or am I spiritually bypassing? Am I compartmentalizing what I've studied? So what are the three? It's study. What's our format? Study, contemplation, meditation. And I really want to make sure that you get like the distinction. They're not the same things. One is like coming to a class. If you came here every Tuesday night, for example, and join the community. That's the study part. But what does that account for in terms of wisdom? Not much. If you left here and didn't think about this again until next Tuesday, that means there was no contemplation of it. And certainly no experiential, the meditation part. The meditation, there's no wisdom component where you're actually, you're bringing it in, it's not compartmentalized anymore. And so if you're still going around with the same behaviors after all these years, but you know a lot of Dharma, that means you've read a lot. It means your books, I would prefer that you have like one or two really, really good Dharma books that you have highlighted again and again and again, than have a whole big bookshelf of Dharma books, which is almost indicative of the thing I'm talking about. Does that make sense? Yeah. Most of the good Dharma books, I'm not talking about the ones in our community library. Most of the good Dharma books that I've ever had, I know so well that I have no problem giving them away. I don't try to keep them because I've been over it so many times. It's literally in me. It's part of me. And so that's how I would, as I try to guide you through this process, that's how I think of it. Don't try to keep the ones that you know really well. Those are the ones those are the ones that really helped you and transformed you. Those are the ones you want to pass on. That's all. And the other ones you're not reading anyway, so you should probably get rid of those too. All right? How's that? Yeah. So let's get into tonight's study part. Mindfulness of thoughts is mindfulness of thoughts and thinking. That's our subject matter for tonight. What was the preceding week? Mindfulness of emotions. And then before that was mindfulness of body or sensations. Right, and before that was mindfulness of breathing. Okay, so we have a few weeks left of this, right? Of this supposedly introductory course, which I think is pretty rich. What do you think? Yeah, good. All right. You have pen and paper? Here's how I want you thinking about this. Draw a stream across your page. Draw a stream across your page, please. Right in the middle of the page, just a river, a stream. Okay? I want to key you into our ongoing subject matter of mindfulness, which I equated as a synonym to freedom, to freedom from suffering. And this is like an integral part of this, mindfulness of thoughts and thinking. Mindfulness of thoughts and thinking. In that river, that stream that you just made, if there were a fish in there, I don't need you to draw that, but just imagine there's a fish in there. It's the idea that fish don't know that they're in water, right? But that is which is weird because that's their primary context, right? But they don't see it. They're in it, right? And it's almost like the only way that you could communicate or get a fish to understand that is by taking them out. Does that make sense? And then they would automatically know what water is. Does that make sense? It's an interesting idea. And what it means metaphorically for you is that most human beings do not realize what they're swimming in, which is a world of thoughts. They don't know it. It seems to be, after all these years of teaching this in counseling, that people seem to be woefully unaware that what is going on, that's called their thinking, is not the world, is not reality. In fact, they have almost nothing, if anything, to do with each other. Almost nothing, if anything, to do with each other. That reality and the water or the thoughts that you live in, in most cases have nothing to do with each other. The reality of a situation and what you're thinking about are two separate events. Two separate events. Isn't that strange? And it's like, how would a human being know that? And it's like, it literally would be to, like a fish, like to pull him out and to go, see, that's what it's like. That's what water is. That's what you've been missing all along, that you're actually in water. And when you take a human being in that context and show them how to step out and observe, how to be aware that there are thoughts, instead of I'm having thoughts, that they're just aware of thoughts. Or that they're having thoughts that they don't even think about. It's like the difference between cognitive and the world. And that's what we're describing right now. It's like freedom, that there can be an awareness that there are thoughts. There can be an awareness that there is thinking, believe it or not. And for you to step outside and to see that and to feel the freedom of that. And which isn't, and I need you to get this part, which isn't to make an enemy of thinking. That is not what we're up to. We're not here to make an enemy. Thoughts are not a problem. And in fact, you have to have them in order to survive. I mean, we're not talking about trying to get rid of thoughts. And as we described in previous classes, that's what most beginning meditators do. They come in and they ask me, can you show me how not to have thoughts? And I'm not interested in that because it's pointless, it's ridiculous. There is a type of meditation that we do in deep absorption states in which we teach you how to not have thoughts. But if that's the goal, and that's just using that type of meditation for escapism, because your thoughts are so painful and they're so crazy, you just want to what? Get out of it. And so we never teach that kind of meditation to people because their intention and their understanding of thoughts is all backward. Thoughts are not a problem. It's our relationship to thoughts. And mostly unaware that thoughts and reality have nothing to do with each other. Our thinking and thoughts have nothing to do with each other. in terms of reality. I mean, just nothing in common. Strange, huh? What a strange idea. That your thoughts and thinking and reality have nothing in common. What an oddball statement I'm making, no?
No.
And an awareness of that you can be aware of that and to feel the freedom of not associating, which actually what I really mean is actually associating, meaning to have a correct relationship with thinking. Most people would say that that's disassociation. And I'm over here saying no, to not know this is to be disassociated. In other words, I'm saying most people are what? Disassociated from reality. Disassociated from reality because they believe that what they think is what is true and what is the world and what is reality. Their thoughts about other people, their thoughts about themselves, their thoughts about events, they believe to be the way things are. And to the point where sometimes they kind of get to it like, well, I guess it's just a bunch of opinions. And versus, I guess that's not a fact, it's like, but everyone has opinions. So therefore we're all kind of on the same page. And that's not what we're saying either. Not at all. This is a different tact completely, which is, are you aware that there is reality that has nothing to do with your thinking? That there is a reality, and it's called reality, that has nothing to do with your thoughts. And have you ever touched that reality before? Because it's the way things are. It's the way things really are. It does not have to do with the way that you conceptualize things. Conceptualize yourself, conceptualize others, or conceptualize the world. That there is reality, and that's experienceable. And it's not a cognitive experience. It's a direct experience. How's that? And that's what we're going to be working on. You interested? You interested in stepping out, or does it sound scary? Or does it sound like that could be really cool? Yeah, that's worth something. And what kind of medications are we going to need for this journey? So what is necessary is awareness. And awareness, in our context, the way that we use that term is essentially sacred. Awareness is what is sacred for us in mindfulness practice. Awareness, this capacity that we call cognizance or to know, knowingness. Knowingness of the way things are. A non-conceptual knowing of reality. A direct experience. Sometimes later, when we get into this, a few years from now, we'll start using a term called YDP, or yogic direct perception. But I'm not going to use that tonight. Not going to use that tonight. But there's an experience that you can have of the way things really are. That is not the way you think about things, but really experiencing the way things are. Yeah, without the cognitive frame of reference involved. Interested? And that's what I'm calling sacred. That's awareness, that there is an awareness, just as we've done in previous weeks. There's an awareness of breath. That's not your breathing, it's just there's an awareness of breath. There can be an awareness of sensations without stories attached to them. There can be an awareness of emotions without assigning blame, like we did last week, where we just aware that there is this leaning, and that there are breath changes, and that there are emotions, but we don't have to blame or hold anyone responsible, including ourselves, for how we feel. How's that? That was all last week, and you guys did great with that. I saw a lot of the work this week, so that's going well. But this is just like last week, except instead of emotions, awareness of just emotions without further stories and without blame. How about just awareness of thoughts? In that same context, there can be an awareness of thinking. And it's the strangest thing for people to start tapping into, because we're not trying to get rid of thinking. So what I'd like you to do with the river that you've made across your page is make a couple, nothing fancy, nothing elaborate, but make 4 or 5 little boats in the river, if you don't mind, and just enough to put a word in there, okay? Just enough to put a word. Now, we're going to name that boat, like you would name any boat, right? Like if you go down to the yacht club, you would see a name on a boat, right? But we're going to name these boats, what we're going to name them are the major, not the whole story, okay? We just want to name them the major events of today, okay? Like in a word, give it like it was a boat topic, okay? What's the name of that boat? What's the name of that subject matter of today? So, job. Really, what's the name of that boat? Job. And what's the name of that boat? Husband. You know, just an overall title, please, of that boat. Okay, that's all. So 4 or 5 big boats today, right? And they're just going along the stream. Thoughts that you had, major thoughts that you've had, like major categories of thoughts. Let's go ahead and just name that, please, and just put them on a boat as a boat title, right? Just going down the stream, merrily, merrily, merrily. What speed would you say on a 0 to 10 basis was the river moving today? Let's just put that below the stream if you don't mind. On a 0 to 10 basis, 10 being like it was a fastest moving stream ever, right? And 0 was like, it was like basically what? How fast was the stream moving, the stream of your mind today that the boats were traveling on? How fast is the stream? Like 0 to 10, would you say? Because sometimes streams are really what? Fast, and sometimes they're really slow. What's the average, would you say? Do you have an idea of this? I'm sort of doing a check-in with you about awareness. Are you aware of the speed of the stream? How's that? Interesting question, huh? Yeah. Yeah, when it's really moving fast, is there a tension associated with that, would you say? Or if it's moving slow, is there some relaxation involved with that? Or sleepiness? Does that mean, does really slow river mean spacing out or zoning out or going to sleep to you? What does that mean to you? Like, what's the relationship to speed of the river for you in terms of energy and in terms of emotion, maybe? Are there any emotions when the river's moving fast? Is anger involved or frustration involved, annoyance? What comes with a fast-moving stream? What comes with a moderate speed? What comes with a slow speed? You know, like Stan, you spent a lot of time in Thailand, right? And Bangkok is really different than northern Thailand, right? What's the speed in northern Thailand?
Very slow.
And so it's very relaxed, right? And then Bangkok is like what?
Very hectic.
Very hectic. Okay, so which today, was it more like Bangkok, would you say? Was it more like New York City, or was it more like you're out here? What would you say it was like today? I know that it was all over the place. Sometimes it was fast, but what's the average, would you say? Yeah, I get that sometimes it's slow and fast in one day. I got you. Right. But are you aware of that? Or do you just think that's the way things are? You know, you can see, what I would like you to do is make a stick figure outside the river, please, not right now. That stick figure, her name will be awareness. Okay. So just so the stick figure is that's just awareness. All right, not you, right? Just awareness. Because I think that it would also be appropriate to, with each of those boats that you made, who do you think the captain is of each of those boats, would you say? Who's the primary subject, have you noticed? Linda, what would you say? Linda? Oh, wait, so Katie, I'm sorry. That's okay. You guys are interchangeable sometimes. So, who's the captain of those boats? You're not. All of a sudden, you're not sure for the first time in your life. Who seems to be the primary subject matter? You were unaware of this. Is that right? Yeah. Interesting. For the first time, you're like, okay, so you are aware that you are the primary subject? Okay, you're the captain of each of the relationship, like you're the primary subject in the relationship, you're the primary subject at the workplace, basically in every situation. No? I mean, you could even name some of those boats emotions too. You can have some more boats, right? That are in tow. Maybe, what do you call the boat that's in tow? The dinghy. So let's make some dinghies, if you don't mind, with each of those boats, please. So what is the primary emotion that goes along with the big boat today? What's the dinghy? anger, anxiety, guilt, depression. This is your story and your emotion, right? How about that? And what we're providing here in the study part of all this, before we do the meditation, is we're providing this idea that you as awareness can step outside and be aware that there's a you, that's the primary subject, and there's this big story, and there's an emotion attached to the story, and that can be observed, and and what does that feel like? Which is what we hinted at the end of last week's class. Right? What does it feel like? What does the awareness feel like? We got that there's a boat and there's the big subject boat and there's the emotional dinghy attached, right? We got that part. Everyone got that? There's an emotional dinghy attached to each of the boats today? Go ahead and name those two, please. So we did that last week. We named the emotion with the story. But there could be an awareness of this as well. What does that awareness feel like? And my point is, I don't care, and I don't want you to care anymore, how fast the stream is moving. Write that part down. Because this is what people come to in meditation. I want to slow what? I want to slow my mind down. I don't want to have so many thoughts. I ruminate a lot, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of interesting. You guys talk to yourself a lot? Like most people? Yeah, talk to yourself a lot? And if someone walked up to you, I want you to imagine this for a second. If someone walked up to you and just, like on a sidewalk, and just started talking to you the way that you talk to yourself, what would you think about them? They're what?
Crazy.
Well, I want you to just ponder that for a second. Okay? If someone just walked up to you and started talking to you in the same way that you talk about yourself. And by the way, do you have the same basic stories over and over and over again? Same basic content, would you say? It rarely even shifts remarkably at all? Have you noticed? So what would you call a friend or someone who just walked up to you and started talking about the same subject over and over and over again? Huh? Boring. Would you want to spend time with them?
And critical, too.
I'm sorry?
Critical.
Right. Would you want to spend time with that person? I want to, because people ask, why would I want to become aware of this and step outside? And that was my reasoning right there. I wanted to show you that. I wanted to use a very practical idea for you to go, oh, that's why I would want to, because I'm that person that if someone walked up to me and just started talking and just wouldn't shut up, you understand? And they were very emotional about what they were saying. And they just kept repeating themselves every day over and over. Would I want to sometimes step away and gain an awareness and appreciation, the freedom that it would feel to step away from a person like that? What do you think? Eleanor? Could you imagine every now and then you just want to take a break? What do you think? And by taking a break from it, you may have enough wherewithal to go, maybe I don't want to step back into a relationship like that again. Or at least in that context. Maybe I can't stop the stream, maybe I can't stop the thoughts, but at least I could, with enough wherewithal, I could change my relationship to my response to that friend. What do you think? Without making them an enemy, without rejecting them and saying I want to stay away from them, but I could at least change that relationship. What do you think? That's mindfulness right there. There's an awareness that this stuff is there. We're not rejecting anything. We're not adopting anything. We're not rejecting anything. It's literally an observation that, yes, these are the major context of my stories, and there's an emotional dinghy attached to each of them, and I seem to be the pilot of each of these boats. What do you think? Is that right or no? And if someone else were to walk up to me, right? And if someone else were to walk up to me and start talking to me the way I talk to myself, I would probably say this is not the kind of relationship that I would like to have close by. I would not like to have a close. I would like to change. Maybe I can't get rid of this person, but at least I would like to change the what? The dynamic. Is that fair? So people say, what is the practical benefit of this? And I'm trying to offer that to you right now. All right, so this is this is why we don't just do meditation first. Why we do study. And then we're doing some contemplation. I'm asking you to think about it and going, is this something I would really want? Does this make sense? Is this something not only that maybe I already have, but I would also like to be able to share this with other people because I care about other people. And they're probably doing the same things that I do. And wouldn't it be nice to have languaging around this? Because I do care about my loved ones. I do care about my friends. I do care about my family. I do care about myself. And even if I learn this for myself, would I still be satisfied, or would I want to be able to share this? Because it would be rough if you were can you imagine if you didn't know how to share this? Because then you'd be in a position of having learned how to be aware of all this stuff, that you saw all your friends and family still going through it, and how would you do with that? And then how would you communicate? And that's why you're here. That's why you're doing this. That's why we're having these sessions every week. It's not just for you to learn, but also for how you can communicate in plain English, and this high level of awareness and high level of emotional intelligence. Okay? Because it's not enough for just you, as it turns out. There has to be more than that. So. The fish thing, that's kind of highlights, like going, okay, so am I like that? Am I like a fish who doesn't know he's in water? Metaphorically, am I that person who doesn't know that they're swimming in a pool of their own thoughts? And even if I did, I don't really know how to what? Step out. I really don't know how to step out. And for those of you who have stepped out, if you would please write down next to the little stick figure called awareness, how does that feel when you have stepped out? And you've truly associated for the first time that I am not my thoughts. I am not the boat. I am not the captain. I'm literally just another story. What does it feel like to step out? Does it really feel disassociative, or does it feel something else? Write down just please how it feels. In your body, how it feels emotionally, how it feels inside your head. Not what you're thinking about, just how it feels, the experience of truly associating with reality. To recognize I am not my thoughts. That I am not my emotions. You did that this week. Like you just recognized there's just emotions. I don't have to take it personally. That was your last week's assignment. Just to be able to, remember, recognize, right? And then what? Allow or accept, and then name. And then investigate. It's just that's really powerful. You tried that, right? It's pretty powerful, isn't it? Yeah. But you have to remember to do it. And of course, you do know that mindfulness, it literally does mean, sati, it means to remember the instructions. Yeah. It doesn't mean dispassionate observation and non-judgmental witnessing. Those are different aspects of mindfulness, to be sure. Clinical observation, things like that. But that's not the definition of mindfulness. In Sanskrit, smriti, please. Please? It's S-M-R-I-T-I. And it literally means to remember the instructions. Meaning bring it into your life. It means don't just remember when you're in here, but remember to integrate the instructions into your life. Make it wisdom. Make it wisdom. And please do never believe me, anything I'm saying. Please go look up this stuff. Go look up Sanskrit for mindfulness, smriti, and what it means. I never want you to be in the position of having to trust me and having confidence in me because of some unbelievable charisma or personality that you believe that you project me to have, which maybe you're right. I don't know. Who am I to say, right? But in any case, go investigate what I'm saying. Don't just believe me. Let's gain some trust with each other. Okay, some confidence there. So when I say things, you go, okay, this guy's when I go look this guy up, he says things that I can look up, I can verify. I'm more of I'm not a big fan of necessarily any political party here, but when Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev were talking. They were doing all the START treaties. Remember that back? Well, the nuclear treaties. Gorbachev said, "Hey, we're also getting rid of our nukes." And Ronald Reagan said to him, like, "Well, that's nice, but we're going to need to have people go and what?" Yeah. You know, and everyone's like, "Really? Why that?" You know, I want you to do that. Trust, but what? But verify. Trust, but verify, please. Okay, that's how we're going to gain confidence. Otherwise, you're never gonna get that confidence if you don't do that part. All right. It's kind of a weird spiritual teacher thing to say, right? Don't believe me, which I'm really saying that. Don't believe me. You go investigate. And a lot of you've been around for a long, you know, many years, and you have done that, and I appreciate that. But if you're new, please please check in with what I'm saying. You know, don't go because, you know, of reputation or because I seem like a nice, trustworthy person. Don't do any of that. Go explore. Okay? Now, the freedom of awareness, the freedom to be able to observe and what that feels like, and to feel that peace and that contentment and the relief of stepping out, of literally stepping out of the disassociation that you formerly thought was actually what? Being associative. You thought you were actually dealing with reality. And when you step out, you realize that you are in fact living in a purely cognitive frame of reference. And that you were the one who was in fact disassociative. Can you believe that? And this whole life you thought what? That you were the one who was relating to what? The reality, and you're relating to the way things are. And this could be perceived as potentially, you know, as kind of an insult, right? And in fact, Trungpa Rinpoche, when he was asked, you know, what is meditation, he actually said that. He said that, what is meditation? And he laughed about it. He goes, meditation is one insult after the next. And I agree to that. I think especially at first, that what you're finding out is that you are the one, not the meditators, who you thought, ooh, what are they, navel gazing? You know, what does meditation mean? And then you get to find out that you were the one who was disassociative all along, and you didn't know it. You weren't even aware. You thought that what you thought was like, you know, that's basically true, right? And then all of a sudden, at this late date in life, you get to find out that you weren't correct. Who would want that? Sounds like okay at first, but as an ongoing matter that I've been wrong for some time, and that every day that you would have to acknowledge that when you got upset with, say, your spouse or a family member, that every day that, you know, that you missed this opportunity to be free of that conflict, and literally the humbling of every meditator is what happens who practices, because it's not that you just get the big picture, you get it hit with it every day. You get hit with humility every day because you had tons of stories with the emotional dinghy attached to it, right? And then you get to find out that it was really all about you. And then you get to step away from that every time you go to meditate. And so that means that you already got lost in all of that stuff again, and then you step out of it and realize that you were what? I've never known someone who's meditated every day and then looked back at the previous day and get, God, I was right about all my stories and all my emotions. That's how you know you're full of it, okay? It's exactly the opposite. It's when you realize, I really have this potential to be aware and to be free of the stories I tell myself. I have that. That's a real. That doesn't come with shaming. It comes with freedom. Humility and freedom here are like starting to relate to each other now. You know, the freedom of not relating, and we're not trying to get rid of stories. And we're not trying to excommunicate them. Not trying to get to a place where we don't have thoughts. We're actually accepting that we're recognizing that there is a river. And what is that river called? Your mind. It's a mind, literally, a mind stream, quite literally. And it's just flowing. And sometimes it flows what? Fast, and sometimes it flows what? Slow, and sometimes there's how many boats on there? Sometimes it's like, you know, sometimes it's like Mardi Gras. You know, it's a full-on festival. And sometimes it seems like there's just a boat full of people and it's sinking, doesn't it? There's just too many people on it, or it's got too many holes in it. How's that feel? You know, that's what emotions attach. What's the emotional dinghy attached with that?
That's going down too.
That's right. And so, you know, literally, and then then sometimes it looks like the river's about to fall off the way, like a cliff or something. And what's the emotional dinghy attached to that one? Anxiety, right? And then sometimes, there's, you may feel like one of the boats cut off the other one, and the other one that you cut off was a family member or whatever. What's the emotional dinghy attached to that one? Guilt, right? And so you can start to see the patterns, like going, is it really possible to step outside and just observe and to feel the freedom without trying to get rid of the thoughts or the emotions? And not trying to execute the captain? Is it really possible? Yeah. We'll do it tonight. We'll do it tonight. And if you want to see the power of this, take a look at one of your boats. What was maybe the big boat today with the biggest emotion, the biggest emotional dinghy attached? Which one would you say? Just take a look at one. Yeah. It's different for everybody. You see it? Liz, you see it? John, you got one? Eric? Okay. So, what would your experience have been today? What would just to show you the power of this, what would your experience today if you hadn't thought that at all? What would your experience be? Not what you would think about if that weren't there. What would be the thought replacement? Just if that weren't there, what would the experience be? If that thought and emotion hadn't been there, what would that experience today been like? What would today be like for you? What if you took away another one of the boats? What if that wasn't there? I'm not talking about replacing it. I'm just saying, what if you just one by one, what would today be like in terms of what would the experience be if that wasn't there? Are you interested? Would it be a void, do you think? Or do you think it would be like a big black hole? Because that's what I was asking you before. What does awareness feel like? Right? The awareness that just observes. Would the awareness go away? It doesn't go away. But if you took away the boat and the emotion, what would the experience be like? Andrea, what do you think it would be like? And that's the thing, is sometimes people they can't even imagine, because it's all, and the reason is because all they know is what? Boats and dinghies. And they really think that's all that there is. And it's like when I say to people, that there's this thing called reality, and it has nothing to do with the content of the river. Did you know that? And that people go, what's that like? And I go, aren't you interested? Because that's what we call peace. That's what we call contentment. We call it the way things really are. We call it dharma. We call it the truth. And you can count on it. And it's actually your home base, where thoughts can never be home base, because thoughts are always what? And the emotional dinghies that are attached to them are always changing too. And the subject matter called yourself is always a moving target. Have you noticed? You're like a chameleon. No? So my question to you is, what would awareness be like? Like if that stuff weren't there. Now you're saying, well, hey, I thought you said it was okay that stuff was there, right? You're probably wondering, like, this sounds like a contradiction. But I'm trying to get you to see something, that it doesn't matter whether the thoughts are there or not. Because what you just said, that would be the experience if there was just the ability to be aware. And that's what I wanted you to see. If you just start relating to the awareness versus the content of the daily stuff that's in the river, life is very, very different. Life is very different. Illusions, pleasure comes with illusions. Happiness comes with awareness. I'm not saying that some of those boats aren't pleasure boats, but those are the illusions. I'm not saying you don't feel pleasure, but when you do, they're always attached to what? The stories. There's happiness that we call otherworldly joy that's always available to you, that comes with knowing the way things are. that you're not your stories, that you're not emotions, and that you're not, I know this is going to sound, this is the worst thing I've said all night, ready? That it's okay not to be your version of you. At any given moment. You can step out of that too. And it feels really good to do so. How's that? That there can just be awareness. That doesn't have to be your awareness, my awareness. It can just be that there is just awareness. And to feel the openness of that, the splendor of that. Not bad. And that's available to you. And we don't need to get rid of the boats. But to try to help you to imagine what it would be like, imagine that there weren't any. And that you, instead of like having a stick figure, imagine a stick figure called awareness. This has been really helpful over the years. Go like this, please. This is a mudra that I've taught people. It's not downward dog, but it's close. Okay, so imagine that you're on the side of the riverbank like this. And what would be the face of a golden retriever? Please? That you're curious and you're investigative and it's like, and you're like looking at the river and you're looking at the river, you get it? Is it, you got it? That's how to practice awareness. How to, like, what is awareness dull? Is awareness like kind of listless? I mean, what's it like? And it's, when done properly, there's the right energy of it. And you know how to do it. And so when you do it, you turn your lips upward like a dog, like a golden retriever. Not any dog, but a golden retriever. You know, you don't want to be like a poodle looking at a river because the poodle doesn't want to what? He doesn't want to get wet. The golden retriever doesn't care if it gets wet, but when he does get wet, when he jumps in, how does he get out? Please know, this is what your answer is going to be pivotal to your understanding of meditation. How does a golden retriever get, once he goes, he chases the stories, you get it? He's chasing the boat and he's chasing the dinghy, right? Now, when the golden retriever jumps in, my question is, how's he get out? What's his body language like? What's he do? Come on, just show me. Come on, everybody get involved. And is he depressed because he got wet? When you chase the stories, the question is, once you catch yourself, by the way, that's the catch-22, write that down of mindfulness, is that once you catch yourself, that's like going into what? Going in the river. Does that make sense? That's what it's like. And mindfulness is a catch-22. It means we don't get upset with ourselves when we chase thoughts. But when we catch ourselves, when you catch yourself, even if it's 20 minutes later after doggy paddling around, chasing boat after boat after boat, and you catch yourself, even at the very end of a session, if the whole session you were chasing thoughts, but if you catch yourself at the end, right, that's called mindfulness. That's the catch-22. Strange, huh? It's not like your whole practice was a disgrace. You're a disgrace to the world of Buddhism. You know, so you don't do that. You just go like this. When you catch yourself, even if it was, well, you're at a 10-day retreat, and for 9.5 days, what did you do? You just chase thoughts the whole time at the very end, right? And you're like going, wow, the whole time, all I did was what? Chase thoughts. That's called mindfulness. Now, what kind of judgment goes along with that? That's another boat. That's the boat called judgment. The good ship judgment. And you can be aware of that too. And that's just, what's the name of that boat? Judgment. That's mindfulness of what? Judgment. That's mindfulness. If you're judgment, we're like, okay, I'm like this. All right. So what do we say to that? That's an interesting question. You can do it one way, which is really good at first, which I recommend to you, which is when there are thoughts and you catch it, you can go like this. It's like when the golden retriever gets the ball. What do you say when that happens? Like when you catch that you're doing it? Thinking. That's an easy way to do it. You could just say thinking. And that's an easy way to start. And then when you get better at it, then you can say things, you can break down like what kind of thought was it, like judgment, judging. And usually you say it twice. Yeah, that's your recognition. It's like going, okay. That's how you know you're stepping back out of the river. Is that you're able to name it. We call it mental noting again from last week. You're able to name the type of thought. But this week, I'm more interested that you're able to say what? Thinking versus the nuance of what type of thinking. Because that can get you kind of lost in the river sometimes if you do that. Okay? So this week I'm more interested in, but for extra credit, if you want to try from time to time to be nuanced and describe what's the name of it, because all the boats right now are called what? Thinking. Every boat is thinking. And then what's the dinghy always called for just this week? Emotion, right? But if you want from time to time to become more nuanced this week, you can then give the ship and the secondary name, which is what kind of thinking? Judging, or planning. Good. Excellent. Yeah. Historying. Quite literally, historying. Familying. You got that? Jobbing. Always verbs though, please. Lots of thoughts about your favorite subject. What do we call it? Selfing. How's that one? Yeah. Which is the biggest boat? Don't do that. That's just another one called catastrophizing. Okay. They're all made of the same thing. Now, when you catch it, remember, how does it go? When you catch it, how does a golden retriever realizes he's in the water, right? And he gets out. How does he get out every time? Let's do it one more time. Now, what's his face like too? Doesn't do that. What's the face like? You got it? Okay, so think mindfulness like a golden retriever, please. Yeah. Shake it off and try again, without judgment. How many judging golden retrievers are here? Can you imagine a judging golden retriever? It's like it's an oxymoron. They don't. They just try. They literally shake it off and what? And they try again. That's what they do. Yeah. You want to be like a golden retriever. Fair? I'm trying to keep it just super direct and super simple. You don't be a Jack Russell. Don't be crazy. Okay? And don't be a poodle who's scared to get wet. You got it? Don't be a Rottweiler or a pit bull that's going to snap at you. Okay? That's not what we're looking for. Nothing against pit bulls or anything like that. I'm just trying to use some metaphors here. All right? I'm sure there's some friendly pit bull owners out there. Right? But what we're looking for is the kind of dog that just doesn't, he's always what? He never gives up and he's always what? Yeah. He's like Lassie or something. Is that a good, like a border collie? Yeah. It's just some dog that just doesn't stop. Always tries again. That's what we're after. Okay? Not a dog that looks at the river and is like, nope, worst river ever. Right? All the boats suck. They're all going down. Right? Okay. So let's fill in the blank with something else, and then we'll do the meditation after this. So some people say, sometimes, what was the primary experience of today? Not just thought-wise, because if I say, well, imagine what today would have been like without that. What would the experience be like without that thought? You can also fill in the blank with energy states. Like some people say, I know when I meditate, I'm just really sleepy. Right? Do you guys have an interview like that? You just I just get super sleepy? Okay? Or fill the blank with something else. This is how I'm feeling. I get super sleepy, or I get super anxious, or I get super restless. Do you get that? Everyone? We're on the same page right now? I want to talk about your primary things that when you go to pay attention, like what we're doing here, what's the primary thing that happens? Is it thought? What's the primary experience? Is it go to sleep? Is it crash and burn? Does my posture look? I want you to increase the time this week to 30 minutes. Okay, minimum. And I want you to see what happens to your posture. Give yourself permission, 2 or 3 movements maximum in a session. And then if this keeps happening and you keep like this, don't correct it. I just want you to experience what it's like to be like this. Okay? But you can correct 2 or 3 times in a 30-minute session. But if you end up like this, don't keep If you just keep correcting, you're never going to learn anything. But give yourself permission to move two or three times. But if you're always fidgeting and stuff, how many of you are always fidgeting? So ask yourself the same question. What would my experience be without what? What would my experience be without thinking? What would my experience be if I wasn't sleeping? So when I try to pay attention, when I try to be aware, you want to know the answer to this question right from the very beginning of your practice. What would my experience be without that? And what you're going to find out is what we call avoidance mechanisms. And some people use thinking for avoidance. Some people use sleepiness for avoidance. Some people use fidgeting for avoidance. And what we mean by avoidance is, what would you be experiencing if you weren't trying to avoid? If you weren't trying to cover up with a whole bunch of thoughts, if you weren't trying to cover up with the activities of restlessness, what would you be left feeling, is my question. What would you be left feeling if you weren't trying to get rid of, and you may not even know that those were your avoidance mechanisms, but I'll tell you right from the very beginning, they always are. When it comes to awareness practices, and then the same thing keeps happening, same like patterns of eruption, or I fall asleep every time I meditate, or I get restless every time I meditate, you can see that there's something you're avoiding, because what's the problem with being aware? Well, if you weren't doing those avoidance mechanisms, what you'd be aware of is how you felt. That's what you'd be aware of. And that's why people have avoidance mechanisms, because what you might feel is a hurt, for example. You might feel anxious. And that's why people do these things. When it comes to awareness practices like this, and the same kind of thing keeps happening to you, you just keep moving, or your body keeps falling off to one side, right? You keep doing the head bob and shaking it back. It's like, please don't attribute it to I'm just sleepy, okay? You ask yourself the same question. If I wasn't doing that, what would I feel? What would I be feeling? Please? Because that's what needs to be acknowledged. And that you can do what? You can do Ronnie with. You can do recognize, acknowledge, name it, and investigate. Instead of keep playing this game of what? This leaning tower of Pisa idea of meditation. Right? Yeah. What's being avoided? And you'll gain tons of traction out of that. Tons of traction. Although I have to say that a lot of people in America especially don't need to be meditating, they need to get some more rest. And that's maybe what you find out, is that you are sleep deprived. And I would prefer, honestly, as a friend to you, I would prefer that you get more sleep than meditation. If you're sleep deprived, and this is just one more thing on your list of things that you have to do, I would prefer that you not do this. I would prefer that you get some rest and to start to feel what it's like to be human, and to acknowledge that people in this room have different sleep patterns. Some of you only need a few hours sleep. Some of you need 8, 9, 10 hours. And that's just true. And we're all different. And I need you to acknowledge that maybe the way that you've structured your life is not, this is what one of the things you might find out, is you might discover that you're avoiding yourself. You're avoiding the statement that actually I do need more sleep. And you're suffering for that. And that's maybe what you're avoiding. So maybe you get to find out that you really are sleep deprived. And that's what a lot of people find out in these practices, believe it or not. I know it sounds like not difficult to believe right now, does it? But maybe that's exactly what you need to discover. Or maybe you need to discover that you use thinking, the cognitive frame of reference, to avoid feeling, which is I'm hurt, I'm wounded emotionally. And I go into what? Fast-moving thoughts to avoid what? The way I feel. And then, of course, there are secondary avoidance mechanisms, usually secondary and third avoidance mechanisms attached. Drugs, alcohol, food, and those are all great indications, that when you go unconscious, that you have avoidance mechanisms. But they almost always start with these first patterns: thought, 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 or sleepy, sleepy, sleepy. There's something. Restlessness, restlessness, restlessness. You'll see. And then the outer, most obvious ones. come from there. Those are all avoidance mechanisms. Avoiding the way you feel. And what we're teaching you is like this unbelievable beauty that you may not have known, is that there is an alternative to avoidance, and that is to be aware. And that to be aware without stories attached. And then to be aware without you as the primary central focus of your world. That there can just be awareness and the freedom and the peace that comes with that. Isn't that beautiful? I hope that you're getting the beauty of what we're describing. Because it's powerful. That you may not have to avoid anything anymore. You can really acknowledge things and not assign blame to yourself or assign blame to other people or to events. That you can just acknowledge things. You can name them. And you can feel the freedom that there can be, as we described last week, there can be ease with unease. That the stream can be what? Rocky and choppy. But there can be ease. There can be the golden retriever who is aware of the fast-moving stream, who does not feel compelled to what? Jump in. Even though the stream may be polluted, you got it, and maybe even a toxic stream at times. Does that make sense? And just for formality's sake, please point your feet in, because this is proper training time, please point your feet away from the teachers and any other direction, because I do want to train you properly in all of this, okay? And keep your books and stuff off the floor, if they're on there, any Dharma book or Dharma text, please, okay? We're going to kind of clean up some of the laxity involved. And even if you're watching online, please don't point your feet at the screen. I'm there, right? Okay, good. All right. So, do some meditation, or do you have some questions? I think we had a lot of study time and some contemplation in here. Do you have any questions about this in particular, before we do the meditation? So I'm going to show you how to step out experientially now. It's going to be the meditation part. So questions out there in internet land about this in particular. Not about just random things, about this subject matter. Classes? No, we're all good? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the meditation, which I want you to be very still and quiet for. If you're going to be leaving the room, then if you're going to come back in, stay in the back. So don't disrupt everyone. But I want you to be quiet and still. I'll lead you through the guided meditation. Before we do, I'd like you to take maybe a minute fidget break, move around, stretch. This isn't a bathroom break, it's literally a fidget break. If you do need to use your bathroom, please go ahead, but stay in the back when you come back in.